thanks to the organizers for inviting me to this very enlightening workshop. I'm BJAALIE, professor at the University of Oslo in Norway, and also research infrastructure director of the EU Human Brain Project, building the eBrains research infrastructure. So FAIR is a great term, but actually before coming with comments speaking to this workshop, I'd like to just point back to a 20-year-old report produced by National Academy of Sciences group, the UPSIDE report, Universal Principle of Sharing Integral Data Expeditiously. And the main message in that report was that any scientist should have ready access to the data and materials needed to verify or replicate a published claim. And at that time, around 2001, probably speaking to discussions around human genome data sharing. Now, the principles there are very basic and clear. Include as much as possible in the journal publication, make available other central information that does not fit, use publicly available repositories for sharing, state how materials used can be obtained, and describe conditions for use when relevant. That captures a lot of what we later are referring to under other terms. So this has been a source of inspiration for my work over the years, and I'll provide you with a few opinions and observations that kind of captures also many discussion points here. So let's see if it works from that point of view. So first, I have the impression that there are two types of investigators and many varieties between these two extremes. One are those that do not invest in organizing the data, but they manage well because they write up their papers fast. If they had waited, it would have been difficult for them to put the pieces together. Then there is the other group at the other end of the scale that invest in data management. They are meticulous and they bring the data into frameworks so that they can keep on adding the data into the same framework, make the data comparable, basically for their own research. But it's so easy then to really share the data. So as you might be guessing, I'm kind of favoring the last category and have been trying to go in this direction with the experiences as follows. It does slow you down, for sure, but it allows you to benefit from earlier work at the later stage very clearly. Uptake of data, I would agree with Irene in many regards. We also see that this is very much leading to collaborations, heavily. But it's not totally impossible with other uptake of data, particularly for certain foundational data sets, and combined with specific tools and needs in the community, you can see huge uptake of shared data. And we are actually today finalizing a paper where we have some new data from last year combined with 20 years old data that were first in a lab repository, now in an international repository with DOIs, and that feels very good in this regard. Now, students. We are observing students now in our lab and elsewhere that have data citations in their PhD thesis, that use openly shared repositories to get back to their own data instead of going to their own computer or server, because that's more convenient. You have it everywhere at any point in time and you rapidly look through and find those data on that service. This is a reality today. Now, over the last few years, I've been involved in the EU Human Brain Project. We are building there the eBrains research infrastructure. And I want to just show maybe one or two slides. Let's see if that could work. Share screen. So here's a slide that captures a little bit of these eBrains services, where I would like to point out that we are developing professionalized data sharing services, clearly defined terms of use, curation, metadata standards, data citation with DOIs, long-term storage, and high-performance computing and other services close to the data. So this is a service where anyone can request a curation, but not everyone can get curation necessarily. So here comes the prioritization that we all also touched upon. This is free at this point in time because we have European Commission funding, but we also deal with sustainability issue by creating a legal entity around these services to maintain them over time, which is absolutely critical. And we try to connect this to something people are used to. That is to think in terms of journal publications, how to make this link between the publication of the data and the publication of the articles. So we try to optimize that. There are some fancy technologies which is nice to look at, but more importantly, there is a place to go and search and find these things and look up basically everything. So this is what we have in this system. And the reason for mentioning it here is particularly that we can, may turn off the screen sharing, thanks, is particularly that we can, in this way, learn a lot as well. So by being in contact with all the data providers and scientists, we are actually seeing what their needs are, and we can adjust our services. So it's a kind of combined top-down and bottom-up approach. And I would say the topic culture is tremendously important, but this is not only about the culture, it's also by changing the culture by providing working solutions to a community. So there's an additional interesting perspective, I hope. Thanks very much.